Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're Masechtas Bava Kama Daf Pei Beis. We are going to begin on Pei Beis and with Aleph, about 8 lines from the top by the 2 dots with a very famous Gemara, Asar Takanos Tikkun Ezra. The Ezra HaSofer instituted 10 Takanos. This is in connection to yesterday's daf where we were learning about the 10 Takanos that Yehoshua did upon entering into Eretz Yisrael, into Eretz Canaan. So now we continue with Ezra, and he also instituted 10 Takanos, which is also fascinating because Ezra was also someone who went from Bava to Eretz Yisrael, as of course we see in Sefer Ezra and Nehemiah, but also in the 4th parak in Kedushin, that just like Yehoshua went to Eretz Yisrael, so too Ezra did the same thing, and they both felt compelled at that time to make takanos. So what were the extra takanos that Ezra established? First of all, that we read on Shabbos, not just the entire parsha on Shabbos morning, but also we will read the first aliyah, broken up into 3 parts, on Shabbos afternoon for mincha, as well as on Mondays and Thursdays. This was based on Ezra. V'danin b'sheni v'chamishi. Also, when it comes to court cases, they convene on Mondays and Thursdays. V'chamsin b'chamishi b'Shabbos. And laundry is done l'kavod Shabbos on Thursdays. V'oichlin shum b'erev Shabbos. And the person, as we'll explain the reason later on in the Gemara, will eat garlic on erev Shabbos, which could either translate as before Shabbos or also could be referring to on Friday night during the Suda. We'll see why. Isha misha mashkemes va'oife, that a woman should get up during the day and to bake. Rashi says, b'yom she srichel efos va'oife shachars, that she should do this earlier in the day, and Rashi explains, so that the bread will be matzul ani hamachazer. So when someone eventually comes knocking on your door for, let's say, lunch, and they're starving, so she'll have food available. And for a woman to wear these special types of undergarments, as Rashi says, dugmas mechnasayim katanim, like small pants underneath. And that a woman should be chayfefes, says Rashi, b'masarik, with a comb. She should comb on the day of her tefillah, because potential issues of chatzitza, which of course then itself is a din deraisa. So what is this takana? We'll see this in the Gemara. V'shehi roichlin machzirin bayaros, that peddlers can bring various spices to women so that they should be able to have perfumes and different aromas, pleasant aromas, that should be given around the city. But tikkun tefillah b'alikarian. And he also, as we see in the 3rd parak of Masechtas Brachos, he was masakin tefillah for a balkari. Okay, so let's continue and understand these 10. So what's the whole issue about Shabbos mincha? So they instituted there should be learning on Shabbos, because we don't want yoshvi kronos, people that are just sitting around in corners, says Rashi. Yoshvi chaniyos kol yemos hachol, all week they're engaged in business. Being karin b'sheni v'chamishi tikkun b'ginayhu kriya yisera. So we want them to do a little bit more learning. Let them do more reading, because they're not people that are very learned. So if that's the case, at least they'll come to shul, hopefully, and they'll be able to learn a little bit more Torah. So it was Ezra, which is mashma. Before this, there was no such institution. There was no takana of reading on Mondays and Thursdays. In fact, the Gemara, Ezra Tikain, V'hami Kar Hami Miskana Mitkana, it was already established a long time ago. The Sanya. It says that they were 3 days in the wilderness without water. And Darshi Rishuma Isamru, those who darshan the psukim on a deeper level, say it's not necessarily only referring to Mayim Bipshutai, But ein mayim al Torah means there were 3 days without Torah. Shenemar hoy kol tzamach al mayim, because it says anyone who's thirsty should go to water. It doesn't literally means go to water. Obviously, if you're thirsty, go to water. It means that if you have thirst for knowledge, you need to go and learn Torah. You need to be able to learn. Which, of course, there's analogies between water and Torah. Water, which is an absolute requirement for the human body to be able to survive. And you can't survive 3 days without water. You need to have water. So too spiritually, will be like a spiritual death if a person is disconnected for so many days without learning Torah. So for 3 days they weren't learning. All of a sudden they became weary spiritually. So the Nevi'im in those days, way before Ezra came, the Tiknolhem Shiu Karim b'Shabbos, you should read on Shabbos. Umafsikin Becha b'Shabbos, Sunday will give you a day off. And Karim b'Sheni, read on Monday. Umafsikin Shlishi Revi, you can take Tuesday, Wednesday off. And Karim b'Chamishi, read on Thursday. Umafsikin Erev Shabbos, take Friday off. Kadeshi Lo Yalinu Gimel Yom B'Loi Torah. There shouldn't be 3 days without Torah. So this is the obvious kasha. How could you tell me that Ezra was masakin it? We find this even before. Where it says, you're right, it was before, but not to the same extent as Ezra. Because Mikara Tiknu Chad Gavra Tlas Psuki. Originally, one person just read 3 psukim. So it was at least you read 3 psukim, that was it. Inami Tlas Gavri Tlas Psuki. Connected Kohanim Levim Yisrael. Maybe it was 3 that did 3 psukim. And maybe it was 1 or 3 people. But the point is, we only had a few psukim read. Also, who Tikkun Tlas Gavri, he instituted there has to be 3 people called up to the Torah of Asar Psuki, and at least 10 psukim keneged Asar Batalanim. Keneged Asar Batalanim. Who are they? So Rashi says, B'nai Adam, this is in Megillah, primarily. B'nai Adam Ksherim Batelim Memalachta. They don't work. And what do? Lasim B'tzarchit Tzibor. They engage in communal matters. B'lavu Kaidmin L'Beis HaKnesses. They come to Shul. Kadeshi Yimatsu Asar Eset Fila. They're always there in Shul. Umisparnasim Mishel Tzibor. So therefore, you need a Shiva minyan, you need a Kaddish. There's always going to be these people around to help out. Okay, so those are called the Asar Batalanim. If you look in Taisvis says, Kadesh L'Yinu Gimel Yom B'Loi V'Yim Timer Mishum Hachi Zomai Shna Shetiknu Shin B'Chamishi. So why Monday and Thursday? I understand between Monday and Thursday is 3 days, but perhaps you could have done Sunday and Wednesday, or Tuesday and Friday. So why Monday and Thursday? So Taisa says, interestingly enough, based on the Medrash, that Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Hashem Al B'Chamishi, he went up to Har Sinai on Thursday, L'Kabel Luchos Hachraynos, to get the second set of Luchos. Yard B'Sheni, he came down on Monday. When it's Ratzalo Hamakayim, and it was a very good thing. Hashem was very happy. So that's the reason why we do this. And it says also, that's the reason why Wahab also, when it comes to fast days, will fast on a Monday and a Thursday, because it's considered to be an ace ratzain, those particular times. Ayin, the rest of Taisus. Okay, weiter. So that was the first takana, or first 2. And then it says, afterwards, V'donin b'sheni v'chamishi, they judged court cases on Monday and Thursday, to shchich hidasel mikra b'sifra, because people would come specifically to shul on Mondays and Thursdays, because they knew there was a Torah reading, so it was more of a full service. So therefore, since more people came on Mondays and Thursdays for that reason, so they instituted that we should also have based in during that time. And with Kavod Shabbos, you should have your clothes already clean. If you wait till Friday afternoon, you may not end up doing your laundry. Then you won't have clothes clean for Shabbos. Do it on Thursday. Okay. So, garlic apparently is something which is beneficial for onah, for procreating. It says Rashi, Shemitzos onah b'leil Shabbos, K'Rav Yehuda Mashum Marbes Hazera. So, when a person has garlic, it's good for a man in that it's causes him to be more likely to be able to reproduce having eaten this particular food. And we know that this is a fact, not necessarily regarding garlic, but certain foods are good to eat for a person who wishes to procreate, and certain foods are not good. So there, obviously, a person, for example, consumes a lot of alcohol, so it's not good for ona. Okay. Don't need to say more on this topic. Anyway, that it should be at its proper time, and therefore shum, at least then, and possibly even now, was beneficial for that. Yom Rav Yehuda v'yitem Rav Nachman v'yitem was Rav Kahana v'yitem was sometimes Rav Yochanan zeh mishamish mitasa me'er Shabbos erev Shabbos. So there's a special inyan to have tashmish, to have relations specifically on Friday night. Doesn't mean it's excluding other times, but the Gemara elsewhere says that Talmud Chacham, that is a time which is unique for the Talmud Chacham to have Zachi of Ona. Tanabon. Chamish Devarim Nemer B'Shum. There's actually 5 things that are said regarding garlic. Masbia, it causes a person to feel full or satiated. Umashchin, it can warm you up. Umatzil Panim, it gives you a shiny face, a nice complexion. Umar B'Hazera, as we talked about before, increases one's potential to have for seed. V'hoyreg kinim shibnei mayim, and it kills anything which is living inside your stomach. Literally says like lice, but some things which are not good in your stomach, it kills it. Some say machnas ava moitzias akina, that love comes in and jealousy comes out. So the reason why is Rashi says it makes a person happy, it's enjoyable, so therefore it's machnas ava and it's moitzias akina. Okay. So this is what we said before, that we want them to have bread early in the morning, baked. So this way, if an ani comes, they'll have the food for them. Question 1. Matikin Ezra Mishim Kavod Shabbos. So Kavod Shabbos to wash your clothes on Thursday. Matikin L'tzar Chaniyim, baking bread in the morning. We want her to, to dress modestly. So she should make sure that she doesn't have any chatzitza in her clothes or her hair, combing her hair. So, for the Gemara, what does that mean? The Araisa, the Sanya. This is born in Sukkah, and the Gemara in Erevin. The Sanya, V'rachatz Basar B'mayim. You should wash your flesh in water. What does that mean? Your basar has to be shaloyehi davar chaytes bein basar l'mayim. It has to be, there's no chatzitza. That's what the pasuk says clearly. As basaro, as a tafel of basar my nihu seyar. That even your hair, there cannot be if you have one strand of hair and there's a knot, you tie a knot in your hair, that's a chatzitza. So you have to check your hair. Remember, Amri diaraisa li'inuye. All you need to do is to examine your hair, Dilma Miktar, because maybe there's some knots, Inami Mois, Mide Mishum Chatzitza. So you have to be careful, as Rashi says, it's Meluchlach. If you're Makbid, the Gemara in Sukkah is Rubel Makbid Alav. Okay, and then there's Gezeres, if it's Miyat Makbid Alav. But you have to check to make sure that there's no knots and that you don't have any form of chatzitza. If there's something meluchach, something which is repugnant in your hair, which is dirty, or there's like some type of something which is not your natural hair that needs to be removed out of your hair. So that's all true. However, as we continue to pay Bezmud Beis, v'aseihu tikin chafifa. He instituted that you should comb your hair as well. So therefore, it makes it even more guaranteed that there's no problem. So all you technically have to do is just look into your hair, and that's enough, and maybe feel around, make sure there's no knots, everything's good. But he said that you should actually comb your hair. You should do a little bit more than that. Very interesting. He mamish made a takana that we should have people that are people who are traders and peddlers, that they sell these different besamim, perfumes, or it could be all different types of things for the sake of a woman to be beautiful in his wife's her husband's eyes, which is a very fascinating thing. That he actually made a takana for this. He wanted to make sure that, again, this is all very interesting. So a lot of it's connected to personal matters. He made a takana, make sure you eat garlic. It's like, because he wanted people to have children. He wanted to strengthen the family. And therefore, he wanted the wife to be able to look beautiful, to smell beautiful. He wanted to make sure that there was no issues of chatzitza. He wanted to make sure that the women were modest. So he did all these different interesting takanos. The tikkun tefillah b'alei kerian. So deraisahu, that's also din deraisa. Ish ki seitzim and shechma zara. And once a man has shechma zara, similar mission, barachas masar b'mayim. So deraisahu truma kadashim. So tikkun tefillah divrei Torah. So even though ein divrei Torah makabel tuma, but nonetheless, which is more again third parak in brachos. But technically, this pasuk is only talking about a kohen for him to be able to eat truma, or for a person to be kodshim, that you have to be toivel in a mikvah. And maybe you need erev shemesh, but the point is that you definitely need these things. You need to go to the mikvah. However, to learn Torah like a non-kohen, fine, same thing. So it says Rashi shel yishna ad sheyitboil, which I'm not sure what Rashi is adding, but of course, I mean, you can't learn until you go to the mikvah. Okay, so those were the 10. And now we continue with another 10. Asar devarim neber b'Yerushalayim. There's 10 things said about the great city of Yerushalayim, Yer HaKodesh. Ein habayis cholot ba. That, and we'll have to understand what this means, as Rashi, there's no din of bias, which is cholot. Kedin bati orichayma. When it comes to a typical walled city, we don't apply those dinim to a walled city in Yerushalayim. El geula tielo. There, you could redeem the property. Im yirtze li goyel, if you wish to redeem it. Im yagia yovel, and once the 50th year comes, yoytze b'yovel kibati ari chatzerim. It actually goes back on the yovel, just like a city which is in a courtyard, which is not the same din when it comes to Bate Orichayma. So we don't have the same dinim of bias Bate Orichayma in Yerushalayim. Again, that you can redeem it, and if you don't redeem it, you'll be able to get it back by Yovel, which is the same din comparable to Ari Chatzerim. That's number 1. The Einam Avia Egla Rufa. So if there was a person that died, and the closest city is Yerushalayim, they will not bring an Egla Rufa. We'll have to see why. Ve'enu nasas erani dachas. Also, if the majority of the people in Yerushalayim, Chas v'Shalom, or Oivdei Avodah Zarah, we do not follow the laws of an erani dachas and exactly how to engage in such a city that has so much idols in them. Ve'enu matama b'negoyim. There's no din of tumas negoyim. So if a person's house, sometimes if you don't get the message, you may end up getting saras on your house, and that does not apply to Eretz Yisrael. Then moitziin bazizin v'guzustarois. And a person cannot take out beams or outward porches. Says Rashi, al pnei ha'aliyah b'chutz. These are certain things that cannot protrude outside from your walls or your upper floors. The ein oisen ba ashpais, ashpasois. A person is not allowed to have like these garbage heaps. The ein oisen ba kivshoinois. A person is not allowed to have these large ovens. The ein oisen ba ganois upardesois. A person is not allowed to have gardens and these orchards. Chutz mi ganos v'rodin. The exception is a rose garden. Shahayu mi amois neviim harishonim, which were all the way back in the days of the Neviim Rishonim, says Rashi, Kach Shema, that's what its name is. V'hi haisat tzricha l'katairis. These gardens were specifically for the incense spices in the Beis Hamikdash. V'hanu kipas hayarden, krisos al shem shederach havered the gadol sfas hayarden. It was called this because it grew by the edge of the waters, and therefore that's what it was called. So this was the exception in order for us to be able to extract from it the necessary ketairos, the spices, which were brought in the Beis Hamikdash on a daily basis. Then migadlin ba tarnagoylin, you're not allowed to have roosters, chickens, hens, and the like in Yerushalayim. Ve'ein malinin ba es a mace, and you cannot leave as a halacha lamaisa, which is the way that we deal with a mace, someone who dies in Yerushalayim. We bury them on that day. We don't leave the mace over a day. We bury them immediately. Okay. So now the Gemara is going to explain these 10. In a bias cholet ba dechsev. It pasuk says in Sefer Vayikra, "V'kama bias asher lechayma," then a house which has a wall around it with smisus forever. L'kaina oisel l'daraisav, to acquire it for generations. So it says that it's referring to someone who has a house around a walled city. However, ksavar l'nischalka Yerushalayim l'shvatim, that Yerushalayim was actually not divided among the Shvatim. It was like everyone has an equal say, an equal connection to Yerushalayim. And therefore, for that reason, the dinim of your city does not apply, because it says, is this the pasuk or arecha? I'm not sure if this is the right Rashi. Arecha mashma she'ata yodela miyuchedasi. Okay, maybe this is, it says it's like your city, but this is not your city. Okay, maybe this is not the part of the pasuk that we need, but anyway, that's the part that's quoted. Anyway, the point is that because, and this is going to be basically the answer for a lot of things, because Yerushalayim was not given over to Shvatim, so all the dinim which are specifically given to the Shvatim, or like you have, it's not like communal ownership, but it's like an individual owner, so the laws are different. Hashem gave you this land as an inheritance. So then in the Parsha of Eglah Rufa, it says that it's the land which I gave to you as an inheritance, so that wasn't given to you as Yerusha. So this is the Rashi. Your city. So again, so far we have three things based on Bati Rechaima, based on the Goyim, Yernidachas, and Eglah Rufa. So because it doesn't apply, also Saras, that there was Saras on your house. So that's 4 already connected to that. Okay. Well, let's stop for 1 second. Let's look at question 2. Right? It's a good question. So Enabai cholet ba. So again, there's no din of Bati Rechaima. You don't bring Eglah Rufa. The city cannot be Nidachas, and there's no Tumas Negayim on houses. Nein moitzin ba zizin ugezuz tera'ois, which this language is found a lot of times in Masechtas Eruvin. So you can't have these like porches, oil hatoma, because we're concerned about ohel hatoma. We don't want things protruding outward, and we don't know what's going on underneath, above, so we just don't want to take any chances. Yishum deloy lit ziku oil regolim. We also don't want the oil regolim to get damaged. So when Rashi oil hatuma shemi hekazais menames mutal ba'aretz, there may be a mace over there, the nimsas marbes atoma. So we don't want to cause problems there. The oisim ba ash pasais mishum shkotzim. We don't want shkotzim in which they generally grow up in these garbage heaps, and they're going to end up bringing tum over there, and because of that, they can end up being matamos, or Rashi says kadoshim in Yerushalayim. So we just don't want garbage heaps around, because it's just going to lead to a lot of tumah problems. In oisin ba kivshainais mishum kutra. We don't want you to have these big ovens. Rashi says oshan, because of the smoke. Shemashcher es a chayma, that's going to blacken the walls. Uganaihu. We don't want we want Yerushalayim to be beautiful. We want be Yerushalayim Shel Zahav. We want golden walls. We don't want blackened walls. Ve'en oisin ba ganois upar desin mishum sircha. We don't want these types of gardens because it can produce foul odor. Rashi says by the tzavim royim, by the various grasses, vegetation, could bring forth a poor smell. And also, it could also be the fertilizer, which may be there, also can bring forth a bad smell. Again, we don't want these tarnagolim who are pecking around in garbage heaps. They can end up bringing shratzim around, and they can be matame kodshim. V'ein malinin b'as hameis gemara. So this is, as Rashi says, Mesiris he biadenu v'ein tam l'davar, or it says ayin tam, right? B'zayhar. We can obviously understand about it has to do with tumah, right? We don't want extra tumah around. We want to alleviate or address any issues of tumah immediately. Okay. So now we go back to the Gemara. It says in the Mishnah, it says ein megadlin chazerim b'chol makmein. So we go a little bit back. We're gonna eventually stumble across the Mishnah, which says that a person should not raise pigs anywhere, and also a person shouldn't raise dogs unless they are properly chained. Okay, so let's see that. So Tanu Rabbanan. Ein megadlin chazerim b'chol makmein. Tanu Rabbanan. Kishitsaru beis chashmonoi zeim zeh zel zeh. When unfortunately there was fighting among the Klal Yisrael at the time of the Chashmonoim, hayu Horkanus mibifnim. Horkanus was inside, and his brother Va'aris Toivlus mibachutz. He was on the outside of the walls, and they were fighting. V'chol yoim hayu mishalshlim lehem b'kupa dinarim. They would lower down a lot of money, in order for them to be able to bring up karbanis, the animals, so we could still bring the Talmud while we were in siege by the Romans. There's someone who understood Chachmas Divanis. He said, as long as the Klal Yisrael are engaged in the avoda of doing the avoda Beis Hamikdash, in nimsarim biyadchem, will never be able to. They'll ever be conquered. So tomorrow shilshul dinarim bekupa. So they lowered the money. Ve'elahem chazir, and they raised up a pig, which obviously that cannot go on the mizbech. When the pig got halfway, natsi parna b'chayma, the pig got its nails stuck into the pig, into the walls, and that's a common thing that it sometimes sticks its feet into certain places. Veniz dazdal Eretz Yisrael arba me'as parsa al arba me'as parsa, and it caused a shaking, like an earthquake. But Oysa shot at that moment, Amru Orah Ishi Gadol Chazerim. Anyone who has pigs, because there was no pigs, this would never have happened. So therefore, anyone who has pigs, it should be cursed. The Arha Adam Shamnas Benai Chachmas Nivanas, as well as anyone who teaches their children Chachmas Nivanas. Val Oysa shot at that moment, Shanina will learn that Masa Shabbat Oymer Miganois Hatzrifim Ushtei Halechem Mavikas Ein Soicher. And we said that when it came to these things, the Omer was brought from this place, Ganos Hatzrifim, and the Shtei Halechem of Shavuos was brought Mavikas Ein Soicher. Okay, we'll stop here by these two dots and see if we have another question. TA 10. Bali Chaim in Megadim Yerushalayim Madua. Okay, so this was pay base. So what cannot be raised? So we said Tarnagoyim Mishum Kadashim. Shal Yavu Shratz Mefiyam V'Yitama Kadashim. Okay, so that's TA 10. Let me just find this. In Megadlin Tarnagoyim, in Megadlin Tarnagoyim Mishum Kadashim. Fine. which is TA10. That's probably it. Okay, we didn't do that. TB11. Ma'atam she'ein moitziin zizin v'gezusterois b'Yerushalayim. 2 answers. Okay, so TB11. Let's see. Ein moitziin ba zizin v'gezusterois v'mnei oil hatoma was 1. Umishum shelo liziku oil regolim. So what did I write? Mipnei atoma mipnei Yerushalayim mipnei ha'oilim beregel. That's how I wrote it. Okay. Rashi doesn't really explain that, but again, that's the idea. Okay, let's see Rabbi Gibber's test, and we'll stop. Okay. Heich kamar begemara de Ezra tikin shehi karim b'shin v'chamishi v'lo zu takanas kaduma mimos Moshe Rabbeinu. So either before they read 1 pasuk each for 3 people, or 3 psukim for 1 person. Keneged Kohen Levi Yisrael. Okay, and they kept going. Mao hachiyah b'deraisa b'nogeya hachana l'tfilas nashim l'inyan sarusehen. Make sure there's no knots in the hair and nothing disgusting on him. Midrabanan, rubbing the hair, chafifa, which could be combing is probably also another way of saying it. Eza dinim nemru shalayim matam shal nechol shvatim. Okay, and he only asked for 3 answers. And I wrote irni dachas, matam in the goyim, l'cholot. I wrote walled city to be redeemed. L'mi mutter lo saper b'loshin yavani. So this is something which we're going to continue in tomorrow's daf. Adka.